Thank you so much, Xanthus and Lorenda, for your presentation. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for waiting on us. And we're the final presentation of this evening. My name is Rosanna Rosario. My name is Ellie. And our presentation titled Port Equipment Infrastructure and Technology. So this is our table of contents that we'll be going over tonight. Next slide. So here we have the quad chart. Before this detailed discussion starts, this quad chart gives a brief overview of our presentation. First, we explain the problems facing the Port of Guam with our issue statement. Second, we talk about the background of why these problems develop and why the Port of Guam is so important to Guam's economy, supply chain, and regional operations. Third, we explain that these problems are connected through the whole port system and not just one area. And finally, we will present our recommendations and our conclusions. Next slide.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the issue statement. So currently, the Port of Guam is facing a range of critical issues that requires immediate attention. The primary concern is the condition of its infrastructure and equipment. Guam's aging infrastructure, there's a picture up there, particularly deteriorating wharves and port structure, combined with the old cranes and the cargo handling system. And maybe there are some old and inefficient IT systems, but the primary concern still remains with the infrastructure and equipment. These assets have not been fully replaced for several structural reasons. So first reason is funding has been fragmented, relying on combination of grants, bonds, and limited self-financing, which has made it difficult to carry out large-scale, comprehensive upgrade. More importantly, the Port of Guam is the only commercial port on the island, handling approximately 90% of all incoming goods in the island. Because of this, it is extremely difficult to shut down any major section of the port for the full-scale rehabilitation. As a result, the port has relied heavily on continuous partial repairs than complete replacement. At the same time, demand has been increasing faster than investment. Both commercial cargo and military logistic requirements have grown significantly, while infrastructure expansion has lagged behind. So, for example, if you see the graph right below up there, the current yard capacity is approximately 126,000 containers per year, while demand exceeds 140,000 containers, already pushing the system beyond its operational limits. In addition, the port currently has about 5 acres of storage space, whereas approximately 7.2 acres are required to meet the peak demand. So if these issues are not addressed, then it leads to a higher cost of living on the island. In addition, given Guam's strategic role in the Indo-Pacific, the risk of military readiness and logistic support will become difficult to avoid. Next slide, please. So, based on these findings, I argue that the challenges facing the Port of Guam are systemic, not isolated. So, from this information, what I found out is that port efficiency depends on the full system flow, from the berth capacity to infrastructure condition to yard space to gate processing, and ultimately to supporting operational systems and technology. When one part of the system becomes constrained, it affects the performance of the entire port. Therefore, addressing these challenges requires more than fixing individual components. It requires improving the system as a whole. So at the same time, the current funding structure remains fragmented, making it difficult to implement large-scale coordinated improvement. So for this reason, I propose a strategy that combines full system optimization with a large-scale foreign investment approach, aimed both resolving funding constraints and enabling integrated port modernization. Next slide, please. So recently, we heard the Maritime Administration approves about $60 million for crane replacement at the Port of Guam. But this raises a bigger question to me. If Guam already depends on foreign companies for advanced port equipment and technology, then why just stop at replacing cranes only? Instead, Guam could use this funding as a starting point for a broader modernization strategy. Under this approach, the existing MARAD funding could serve as an anchor investment to attract a long-term industrial partner capable of modernizing not only cranes. This could also support dual-use maritime infrastructure for both commercial operations and U.S. military needs. So this would help transform the project from a simple repair effort into a long-term maritime development strategy for Guam. Maybe in the future, it could also help Guam reduce its heavy dependence on tourism. And this idea is possible because Guam already has important strategic advantages. First, Guam is an important location for U.S. 7th Fleet and Indo-PACOM. It can support emergency repair and maintenance operation much faster than sending ships back to the U.S. mainland. Second, Guam is a U.S. territory which provides legal protection and security for sensitive military technology and operations. Third, the U.S. Navy is already investing in advanced manufacturing in Guam, including 3D printing technology to improve repair speed and supply chain support. So Guam is not starting from zero. So we can also see similar examples in the real world. For example, the Hana's acquisition of the Philadelphia shipyard. Hana is number one shipbuilding company in Korea. They just recently bought the Philadelphia shipyard, and that's a good example. Shows how foreign investment can successfully work within the U.S. maritime industry. And there is a Korea semiconductor investment in Georgia. Also shows how government incentives, logistic and long-term policy support can attract large foreign investment projects. So Guam may not have the same level of infrastructure as those locations yet, but Guam has different strengths. First, Guam is strategically located in the Indo-Pacific, close to key allies like South Korea, Japan, and Australia. And it has a many multicultural environment that may be more welcoming for international workers and foreign partnerships. These advantages give Guam a realistic opportunity to attract foreign investment in the future. The next question is, what conditions are needed to make that happen? And that is what I will discuss next. So, one of the Guam's biggest structural challenges is labor. Thanks to Chris, workforce development. Yeah. But I will just touch more about the visa and stuff. So, large-scale port modernization requires not only manpower, but also highly specialized technical expertise. So, however, Guam has long struggled with chronic labor shortage and limited industrial workforce capacity. Therefore, rather than relying solely on traditional H visas passage, Guam should pursue broader allied workforce framework. So one potential passage is through legislation, such as the proposed Partner with Korea Act. The Partner with Korea Act is the bipartisan U.S. bill introduced in 2025 by Congresswoman Jeong to expand high-skilled visa access for Korean professionals participating in strategic industries and infrastructure projects in the United States. In addition, following the 2025 visa-related detention incident involving Korean engineers at industrial construction site in Georgia, the U.S. and South Korea moved forward clarifying guidelines regarding the use of H-1 business visas and ESTA visa-related activities for certain installation, maintenance, and technical support operation. So Guam should strategically leverage these evolving policy discussions to support large-scale maritime modernization projects. Under this approach, the goal is to establish a strategic workforce framework capable of supporting critical infrastructure projects through, first, expedited visa processing for key technical personnel. Second, recognition of allied technical expertise and certification. And third, multi-year deployment continuity for long-term modernization projects. So important point is, this is not be intended to replace Guam's local workforce. Instead, it is function as a temporary technical capacity bridge during the early stage of modernization, while Guam gradually developed its own long-term industrial workforce bases. And the second recommendation will be represented by Rosanna.
Thank you, Ellie. So our second recommendation, the financial incentives. Another recommendation on how to bring them would be a long-term commercial feasibility study. And we believe that no company will commit to billions of dollars without a feasibility study. That's why we are proposing a guaranteed Navy Emerald pipeline, a long-term commitment for the U.S. Navy and the broader Indo-Pacific operations to consistently utilize Guam's private sector repair and sustainment capacity. Guam plays a vital role in supporting the 7th Fleet, and now it's time to evolve from logistic stops to a true Indo-Pacific sustainment hub. Because of the stable demand that drives investment with confidence, when the industry sees reliable long-term revenue, they invest building infrastructure, expanding capacity, and modernizing operations. Myself and Ellie, we are already seeing some of this model succeed through the Hanwha investment through the Philadelphia shipyard, and we believe that Guam can do the same in the future. A guaranteed Navy Emerald pipeline would also strengthen military readiness, attract industrial investment, create jobs as per workforce development, as Chris said, position Guam as a maritime support hub for the Indo-Pacific. Next slide, please. The third recommendation that we have of how to bring them, the U.S. is expanding the maritime industry policy through Make America Shipping Great Again, and also through the PIR, and within this shift, Guam could pursue a more direct and aggressive investment incentive package to attract allied industrial capital. Guam could coordinate with MRAD in funding to help cover upfront costs for port modernization, including equipment installation, system integration, and early operational startups, reducing initial investment risks. This could also offer a 50% corporate tax reduction during active projects to offset high logistics and operating costs of doing business on Guam. And in addition, Guam could provide tax credit for large-scale infrastructure projects such as smart port systems, automation, and maritime upgrades that are tied to capital investments, the threshold. And finally, Guam could extend long-term incentives such as discounted port land leases or priority access rights for firms participating in modernization efforts. Together, me and Ellie believe that these recommendations can shift Guam from offering standard incentives to building long-term strategy for attracting capital, technology, and sustained industrial investment. Next slide. And to end us off today, I'm going to bring us home with a conclusion. And this final slide, me and Ellie believe that the Port of Guam is not just dealing with the routine strain, it is defining a turning point. Across the system, pressure is mounting, aging infrastructure and limited equipment, the rising cargo demand, capacity constraints, and long-term funding needs. These challenges are not separate. They're driven by rapid response of the Indo-Pacific. Shipping is expanding, transshipment is accelerating, and the U.S. military logistics demands are growing as the region becomes the center of strategic competition. The result is clear that we believe that the Port of Guam is being pushed beyond its original limits, but the pressure is an opportunity. Guam's location is a very rare advantage because its ability to become a dual-use Indo-Pacific hub that supports global trade and U.S. military readiness. But that future will not come from incremental fixes, it requires transformation. So the question we have also is whether Guam matters, and we do believe that it already does. And another question is that, is Guam willing to invest on a scale that's dealing with this important demands? Because if they do, the Port of Guam won't just adapt to the Indo-Pacific shift, it will help define it. And we just want to end our presentation off with a quote by John F. Kennedy. Geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies. Thank you, and on behalf of our class and team, we thank everybody for coming out tonight. We'd like to thank the honorables and the dignitaries, and we hope you enjoyed today's presentation, and we look forward to future opportunities to work or connect with you all. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.